One of the biblical stories that is best understood by the changes in modern communications is the story of the Tower of Babel. It begins with a startling contradiction. After the end of chapter 10 of Genesis, we've just been told that Noah's people spread out all over the earth and became different nations with different languages and different cultures. At the beginning of chapter 11, we're told that the whole world has one language. Exactly the opposite of what we were told just before. This is, I think, because there are two Noahs, two lines of descent. And the one Adam and Eve based Noah in the later part of Genesis 9 has just duplicated the story following the tree of knowledge and the fall. He's had several, elements duplicated from it. These include eating fruit you're not supposed to, or too much of it, getting drunk, being the first tiller of the ground, like Yahweh and Adam and Cain were, being naked and or ashamed, and being discovered. And those are echoes which link that particular Noah as someone who survived and preserved the lineage of the flood, leading all the way back to Adam and Eve, the people made in Genesis 2. There is, however, I think, another lineage from Genesis 1, the Elohim limited lineage. And this is what I think begins to be discussed in the beginning of chapter 11, the Tower of Babel story. At the beginning, these people are not even identified. It just says men and sons of men. Now, if you've seen my other video, this I would interpret in this particular context as meaning the sons who are descended from the Elohim creation, people who haven't interbred with gods and remained human completely throughout. Now, it's very strange, if they are the only people on the earth at this time, to be worried about making a name for themselves, and because there's no one else, no other names to be made or had. Why should they be worried? Why should they want to build this tower to make a name for themselves? I think the tower represents a lineage, a line of descent, and it reaches up to heaven figuratively because they want to show their link to the heavenly beings who made them and began their lineage, their line of descent, which for these people is narrow, like a tower. Not like the people who spread out all over the earth and became numerous nations, 70 or so, including the Gentile nations. These ones are relatively few people, and they have a narrow line of descent, always traced down like the vertical walls of a tower. And these people have become nameless. This is very strange in a book that makes so much record of everyone's name, and a chapter in which the patriarch is named Shem, which means name or renown. It all references to being known or famous. Now, these people then, as I see it, have just had their entire lineage duplicated and attributed to someone else. And this is the way that things happen on the internet, or at least in my case. I've had pieces of my identity copied and spread all over, so people seeing them will think they've met me, when my channel and what I have to say is about something far more than what they have widely publicized. So this is, I see it through my eyes, is the story of these people who've had all their names copied and attributed to other people. And this is a means of confounding understanding, changing the image of who people are by the opposite means from what are explicitly discussed in the story of Tower of Babel, which is giving everyone different languages. So the reader looks for examples of everybody acquiring different languages and says, these people must be the people from the previous chapter, when in fact, I believe they may not be. The means of confounding, of confusion, of Babel, is through acquiring and spreading and attributing exactly the same language, the same names, to a different group of people. And the deity who does this to what I interpret are the Elohim line of descent is Yahweh. So it's not just a question of being arrogant and saying, I descended from these great beings, which is fair to say, but also simply wanting to preserve one's lineage in the face of copying from people who worshipped a different god.